I'm not sure who this is for, but I know it's for someone who's struggling and going through a difficult moment now. I want you to know in life rain will fall, but God will cover you right in the midst of your storm.
It's raining now.
I know it's raining,
but don't keep your head down.
Lift up your head.
Things will work out.
It's going to work out.
Things will work out. They'll work out.
I promise you.
It's been a little rough.
I know it's been rough.
And you feel like giving up.
Don't you do it.
But things will work out.
It's gonna work out.
It will work out.
Let me sing about it. Many late night tears, struggling with all kinds of fears, wondering if God or anyone else hears. But Jesus is working on your behalf, and I guarantee it won't last. Things will work out.
It's raining now.
Oh, it's raining now.
Don't keep your head down.
Don't keep your head down.
Will work out.
Gonna work out. Yes, they will.
Will work out.
Oh.
It's been a little rough.
I know it's been rough.
Like giving up.
Don't give up.
Things will work.
Don't you do it. Things will work out.
Work out.
Come on, Dave.
You may have had shattered dreams, promises unfulfilled. Asking God, is this really your will? But just hold to his hand and watch him reveal his plan. Oh, things will work out. Things will work out.
I believe.
Yeah. Things are gonna get better, y'all. Oh, for it's written, and I read it for myself in the Bible. There's for I very well believe that you are saved. Just trust and things will work out. Whatever you're facing, whatever you're going through, things will work out. Yeah, whatever it is, give it to him and things will work out. Yeah. Listen, Pastor Sam, I'm reminded of a Bible verse that my mama used to quote to me.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. And I want to stand with you today and let somebody know that things will work out. Things will work out, yes they will.
Work out, yes, they will.
Things will work out.
Yes, they will.
Yes, they will. Somebody else to say things will
work out.
Oh, yes it will.
Whatever you're going through,
he's working it out for your good.
Yes, it will.
Things will work out.
No, it will.
No, it will.
Things will work out.
They will.
Well, God bless you, everyone. What another amazing day this is. I am so excited to have you with me this day. Listen, do me a favor. Very quickly, hit that share button, text, tweet, inbox, call, whatever you have to do to bring somebody into this worship experience, this virtual worship experience. Today is going to be an exciting day, and I believe it's going to bless you tremendously. I'm going to talk today about from the subject, fear is a scam. That's right. It's a scam. I know its grips have been on many of you for years and years and years, but ladies and gentlemen, fear is a scam. And when I say scam, I'm making reference to the acronym that fear suffocates creativity, ambitions, and motives. Perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, fear is the most dangerous of all psychological deterrents. And I'm going to show you as we move through this particular lesson how you can handle it and overcome it. Psalm 34, verse 4 through 5, I just want to read that into your hearing. It says, I sought the Lord and he answered me, and he delivered me from all of my fears, all of them. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. Fear is perhaps your greatest liability right now. It's actually not the amount of debt you're in, but it's actually the degree of fear that you are operating in and allowing to be dominant in your life. How many times do we find ourselves frozen by fear? Honestly, if you were to ask me, it would be too many to count, too many to make mention of. Perhaps it would be too embarrassing to even disclose to you how often I have been caught in the grips of fear. The reality of it is that fear kills more dreams than failure has or ever will. There is nothing that so effectively robs the mind of all of its powers of acting and reasoning as fear. At moments when you need to be taking a leap, when you need to be lunging forward, fear causes this overwhelming hesitation that ultimately paralyzes our potential progress and our success. One of the greatest discoveries a man makes, and one of his greatest surprises, is to find that he can actually do what he was afraid he could not do. Have you lived long enough yet to now have accomplished some things that prior to you accomplishing them, there was a season where you were apprehensive even about attempting it, even about entertaining the notion of doing such a thing, because it was such a feat to accomplish. But now that you've accomplished it, you now look back in retrospection and realize how often that fear has kept you from moving into great places of success. Fear takes on many forms. There is the fear of disapproval, the fear of wasted opportunity, of unrealized potential, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being alone, and the list goes on and on and on. John Maxwell once said that the greatest mistake we make is living in constant fear that we will make one. And I cannot tell you how often that has caused many individuals to live in a place of neutrality. They're not gaining any ground. They're not having any increase in momentum. They are simply running in place, if you will. They're in a place of inactivity. But if I'm going to move forward, then that means I have to throw out the what ifs. And I have to throw out the negatives about what I'm attempting to do and embrace life with an unshakable and even this unexplainable optimism. It is usually our need for predictability that fuels most of our fear. Whenever we lose the comfort that predictability provides for us, then instinctively, maybe you haven't, but instinctively, There were times when I would just go into panic mode and become paranoid because the plans that I had and the path that I found myself on was totally different than the one I assumed I would be on, because God had decided, or predetermined rather, that this would be the path that I would take. But because I thought another one would be it, when it was switched on me, then I became awfully paranoid and panicked. But ladies and gentlemen, that can be a very fearful thing when you think your life is destined to head one way, and in actuality, you start getting the revelation or discover that it was intended to go in a totally different direction. Too many people are thinking of security instead of opportunity. Let me say that to you again. The reason that you're so afraid to move and to live life at your predestined capacity and to reach optimum levels of success is that too many people are thinking about security instead of opportunity. But I want to tell you, real opportunity becomes available in your life the moment you detach yourself from that need of that security. Ladies and gentlemen, there seem to be more people who are afraid of life than they are of death, right? That fear keeps them in a place where they're simply existing. They're not living, they're not thriving, they're not burgeoning, they're not flourishing in every degree of their life. And that is because you have allowed fear to suffocate you. You've allowed fear to imprison you into this place of inactivity. Let me say this to you. A few nights ago, I was watching this Pixar movie, I believe. I think it was actually called Monsters. And watching it with my grandbaby, and monsters were showing up everywhere on the screen. And one monster said to the other one, who obviously was shaking and fearful, said, aren't you afraid? One of the people, rather, not monster, one of the people said to the other individual when they saw the monsters approaching, they said, aren't you afraid? We need to get out of here, grab ourselves and run. And he said something that shook me to the core. He said to the other individual, there are very few monsters who warrant the fear we have of them. I want you to think about there for a moment. There are very few monsters that warrant the fear that we have of them. Ladies and gentlemen, could it be possible that you are fearing something that doesn't necessarily warrant being afraid of? You are afraid of walking through a particular door, new opportunity, new platform, new location that God has orchestrated for your life, but because of the looming size of the monster and because of how big and how vicious the growl of it is, you decided that your best course of action perhaps would be to run. But the reality of it is there are very few monsters who warrant the fear that we have of them. Operating in fear can be mentally stressful, mentally taxing. It can absolutely take a toll, not just on your faith, but absolutely on your mind. Because the mental stress of feeling fear can lead us to make poor decisions. When we are afraid, hear me, we are less able to accurately assess situations. And so we don't devote much time to deliberation, to the process. We simply make decisions that are fear-induced, and more often than not, the outcomes are unfavorable. Hear me. The reason that everything that's coming at you seems to be coming at you to push you into a place of panic is to get you to make impulsive popcorn decisions without adequately having enough time to deliberate very carefully and critically about what the next step would be, what your next move should be, because it is fear inducing you to make moves that are ultimately going to be unfavorable. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most critical things about fear that I think you really should grasp is that so much of our fear is based on the wrong assumptions. And those assumptions create for us this unhealthy level of apprehension. Most fear, hear me, most fear is unfounded. However, almost instantly, almost instinctively, we react and or respond to it as if the information or the data or the stats are absolutely accurate. This is why, again, you have to be careful that you're not just impulsively reacting to everything that you see, everything you hear, everything you are reading, everything you are feeling, because there are all signs. It is a deception that fear uses to induce fear in you so that you ultimately make the wrong decisions. What is critical to understand is that fear is only as deep as the mind allows it to be. Now let that sink in for a moment. Fear is only as deep as the mind allows it. This is why you have to stop allowing yourself to imagine the worst case scenarios all the time. I mean, the slightest sign of trouble, your mind instinctively tells you this is going to happen. It's going to be drastic. It's going to be dreadful. It's going to be devastating. But the truth of the matter is, fear often causes people to run and to replay the worst case scenarios in their mind, because most people think preparing for the worst will somehow make them feel better, when it's absolutely not true at all. It usually creates more anxiety because your fear is not created by the actual situation, but it's created by your thoughts about the situation. Lose your job. I'm going to get put out. My furniture is going to be out on the day. Your mind is rushing you to these dreadful ends. But imagining the worst case scenario will literally run the experience through your mind as if it's actually happening. So what happens then? So you start responding as though that feared event is taking place, which can lead to unnecessary stress. Have you lived long enough by now to see the thing that you fear that would happen didn't happen at all? Or if it did happen, it wasn't as nearly as intense or devastating as your mind was trying to convince you based on the suggestion of your fear. That's why, hear me, ladies and gentlemen, you have to approach every affair in your life with a clear mind, with a clear heart, and a clear spirit, right? Knowing that whatever happens, the outcome is going to be absolutely favorable on your behalf. The enemy uses fear in order to get you to make these impulsive decisions that ultimately produce unfavorable outcomes. There are these, what I like to call, presumptive fears. They arise from events or circumstances that have not happened or may not even happen at all. Again, I've lived through that. I thought this was going to happen. I was bracing for it. And by the time I loosened my grip to check and see if what was going to happen happened, it never did. It is just to keep you inactive. It is to keep you disconnected from moving, from momentum, from covering ground. Ladies and gentlemen, we are more often frightened than we are hurt. I want you to understand that most of us suffer more from imagination than from our reality. You have to get out of your head. Have you found yourself so far in your head that you can't even process your reality because you're in your head? Again, you're playing out the worst case scenarios. You're thinking about what can go wrong, how long this is going to be this bad. These are these presumptive fears. Then there are these preconceived fears. They arise from thinking patterns we've created and become adjusted to, whereby we interpret everything as final. Oh, the doctor said this, so that's final. The lawyer said this, so that's final, right? And so when you have these preconceived fears, then you shut out the possibility of prophetic intervention. You shut out the notion that anything can change beyond what your mind, by your fear, has convinced you that it can be. This is final. Ladies and gentlemen, out of all the liars in the world, sometimes the worst are our own fears. Now, I know some liars, but Nobody has ever lied to me more than my own fear. My fear told me, you can't do that. You'll never accomplish this. Get that out of your mind. Erase that ridiculous notion that you could have this or you could absolutely accomplish this. If you're not careful, fear will have you intimidated by life, by opportunities, by people, by ideas of betterment, and what other people think of you. Oh, God. I wish I had more time, but I know what that senseless cycle feels like. Intimidated by life, by the opportunities, by people, by ideas of better, what other people think of you. But let me just help free you up. You will never please everyone. And rarely is it worth sacrificing yourself to accommodate some other people's belief about who you should be or what you should be doing. Now, ironically, everybody wants change on some level, but most have this fear of change. Everybody has it. I mean, you develop certain comfort zones, certain safe routines for your life, and any degree of disruption makes you a little uncomfortable. But it's necessary disruption, necessary discomfort in order to move you into the place you were intended to be. So you must embrace change. You must embrace it. Change is constant. It's a part of evolution. It's a part of life. It's a part of the human experience. It's a part of the faith experience. You should be believing on a higher level now than you were a few weeks ago, right? Because change is evolution. Hear me, all of you who are being afraid of change and doing what you know internally God is calling you to do. You can discover what your enemy fears most by observing the means he uses to frighten you. You don't know how important that was. You can discover what your enemy fears the most about you by observing the means he uses to frighten you. You worked yourself up. You say, I'm going to do a certain thing, and the enemy starts attacking your esteem. He starts attacking your perceived lack of ability to operate at that level or to function in that dimension. But you can always discover what your enemy fears the most about you by observing what the enemy used to frighten you. If you are distressed by anything external, hear me very carefully, the pain is never due to the thing itself, but the pain is caused by your estimation of it. And this you have the power to resolve at any moment. Let me give you that again. If you're distressed by anything external, the pain is never due to the thing itself, but it's your estimation of it, and you have the power to revoke it at absolutely any moment. There's some of you now need to snatch your life back from fear. You've been under its oppression and depression for a long time, but you have the power right now. Let me talk to you right now. You have the power to revoke the power that fear has on you at absolutely any moment. So why not make that moment this moment? Take it back. So what do I have to do if I'm going to walk in a place where I got the revelation that fear is really the scam? Number one, you have to challenge convention. What does that mean? It means that I have to go against the grain in terms of my thinking, in terms of my activity. You have to be bold enough to live life on your terms, hear me, without feeling guilty about being unapologetic. You must have the stubborn refusal not to conform to what's commonly done or expected. You must be unwavering about your preference being the path of the contrary. In other words, you must possess the inner resolve to combat to some degree any endeavor that you cannot approach radically. There's some things that if people want you to do it by the books, the way it's always been done, you have to decide, I have to opt out of that. Because all that produces is moments in our lives where we get stuck in these repetitive cycles and patterns of redundancy where we exhaust energy, but we fail to exhibit evolution. If you change your approach, you can change how accurately you can predict successful progress in your life. But it will not happen until you start challenging convention. No, I don't want to do it that way. I don't want to do it the way those did it. And I'm not using other people as the markers for what I can or cannot do. I have to challenge convention. Number two, I've got to give clearance to my curiosity. It is said that curiosity will conquer fear even more than bravery will. You have to be daring enough to defy any person's objection of your attempt at progress. Here's what you must understand, and I hope you get this in your spirit. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. That is so critical, because fear wants to keep you in the small, shrunken state. It wants to keep you looking at life through a small, narrow vantage point. But the moment you shed that fear and begin to take that spirit of boldness on you that you have been given by God, the whole world opens up to you. You're going to look back over your life one day and want to slap yourself and can't believe that I was scared to live any bigger, that I was scared to go out and apply for this, that I was scared to go out and audition for this role. You're going to look back over your life and be upset that you allowed fear to keep you in a shrunken state for that long in your life. Plato said, we can forgive a child who is afraid of the dark, but the real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Let me tell you, let me help you. Your future is bright. It is radiant. The text I read you in Psalm says the radiance is on your face. Sometimes we are more afraid of the light than we are of the dark. And because we've been in the dark more than we've been in the light, we've been in a dark place, a dreadful place, dry place, a place that is not sufficient, a place that could not accommodate who we are. And sometimes we become afraid of the light. But I want to look you in your eye and I want to tell you to start moving toward that light. There is more expanded existence than the one that you are living now. There is more life for you, but you will never get to it until you give clearance to your curiosity and say, I wonder what would happen if I did this. That's the only way you're going to combat this degree of fear, is that your level of curiosity has to go higher than it's ever been in your life. I wonder, could I captivate an audience? I wonder, could I sell my books or products? You got to get more curious, because when you become curious, there is a degree of freedom and liberty that's going to overtake you and allow you to walk into the light that you were created to walk in. And so not only, ladies and gentlemen, number one is that I've got to challenge convention. Number two, I've got to give clearance to my curiosity. Number three, I've got to stop being so cautious. Now, this is critical, because the statement I want to make to you is powerful. And that is, you can never cash in on caution. Let me let that sink in for a moment. You can't cash in on being cautious. Anybody who's ever done anything significant and substantial and made great imprints in the realm of success has done it as a result of being okay with taking certain risk. The problem with most people is that we fear taking risks. Don't fear failure so much that you refuse to try new things. Ladies and gentlemen, the saddest summary of any individual's life contains three descriptions. Here they are: could have, would have, should have. Never be afraid to try something new. Hear this, pay attention, watch me really closely. The reason that you should never be afraid to try something new or to explore all the options that are available for you, I want you to remember, amateurs build the ark and professionals build the Titanic. I want that to sink in. Try it. It's not gonna, I'd rather try something that failed than waste 20 years said, I should have tried it. Maybe I should have given a go at that. Ladies and gentlemen, you're at the point in your life now where perhaps you might be a little too cautious. You might be a little too reserved. You might be a little too apprehensive because all your life people have told you, it's been inundated in your mind and your spirit. You don't have enough of what it takes. We don't do that in this family. This family makes this amount of money and we're okay with that. And that has influenced you not to thrive and not to move ahead and embrace your God-given right and destiny and entitlement to live a larger life than the one you are living now. The problem is you can't cash in on cautious though. So if I'm going to break out of the cycle of fear, I've got to challenge convention. Number two, I've got to give clearance to my curiosity. I've got to stop being so cautious. Number four, I've got to conquer comparing. See, because as long as you're comparing where you are in relation to where others are, who have progressed further than you, those who have accomplished more than you, then you could potentially lose momentum fearing that you'll never measure up to them. Again, fear is mostly contributed to you comparing yourself to others at where they are and where they are in their particular place in life, rather than capitalizing on that time, using it to become the best version of yourself, to educate yourself more, expose yourself more, so that you can have the kind of experience out of life that you've always dreamed of. Men go to far greater lengths to avoid their fears than they do to obtain what they desire. Now that's more powerful than you even know. People will go out of their way to avoid their fears. They will go through much greater lengths to avoid their fears than they do to obtain what they desire. The question is, how much do you desire it? It's not until desire trumps the fear that manifestation occurs in your life. Man, that was some of my private stuff, stash stuff right there. It's not until your desire trumps your fear that manifestation really takes place in your life. And so you got to decide from today on, I recognize fear as a scam. It's just to suffocate and suppress my creativity, my aspirations, my motives, my dreams, things that I want to do out of my life. It is only there as as a scam, right? So you got to understand. Let me give you three things about fear that you must get. Number one, fear disrupts the concentration you need to advance in your life. As long as you are fearful, your mind is everywhere. Your brains are scattered. Your thoughts are disconjointed. Nothing is in alignment with your mind, your spirit, your action, your behavior. Everything is out of joint because fear disrupts the concentration you need to advance your life. And I want to speak into your spirit and decree to you that your life is ready. It's waiting for you to make the decision by eliminating the fear that you're ready for your life to advance to the next dimension. Number two, fear keeps you consumed with the negatives while magnifying how much can go wrong. I tell people all the time, while you were talking about how much can go wrong, you're failing to give consideration to how much can go right. You'll be so busy giving so much thought to how much this could set you back when you're not even contemplating how much further this could set you ahead. If you would ever shed the fear and step out and do the thing you are sensing and hearing in your heart and in your spirit, you could produce just astronomical figures in terms of income, in terms of productivity for your life, but you've got to stop allowing fear to consume you with the negatives. Every time a negative rises, you combat it with something positive. Every time people are speaking negative to you, you got to do what I do. You got to learn how to remove yourself from the environment. I can't do nothing about you being in the environment, but I can do something about me I can remove myself out of every negative. You have the right to do so. You are under no obligation to stay in any environment that is not contributing to your evolving or your expansion. Then number 3, fear, it distorts the clarity you need in terms of self-perception to produce at maximum levels. Fear is only there to get you to see yourself again in a lowered state. It's only to get yourself to talk to yourself in a demeaned manner. It's only there to get you to see yourself through a small window, to view yourself small. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing small about you. Everything about your future is looking much bigger than it does now. Everything about your next stage, your next phase of life, the next sequence of events that are leading up to a massive future, there's nothing little about it. I pronounce big on you this day. I speak bigger opportunities, bigger salaries, bigger doors, bigger positions are coming to you. Once you recognize fear is a scam, you no longer walk around treading on thin ice. There's a boldness that comes in you when you realize that's all a scam anyway. It's a psychological, spiritual, it's a deception from hell itself to stop you from attempting to make progress. But this day, go get it with everything you got. Your future is waiting on you to show up. Well, it's offering time, my friends, my partners from all around the country. It's time to give, to make investment, kingdom investment, sow seed into blessed soil that is sure to produce a significant harvest like you have never seen before. Again, let me, as always, thank all of you who continually support the work of God in this ministry, not just on Sundays or any other days, but you support it every single week. And for that, I want to thank you. On this day, I'm going to challenge everyone that's watching me this day. I want you to release your faith. I want everyone that's watching that will watch. I want you to release a $30 seed offering. That's right. I want you to invest a $30 seed offering into the ground. I believe, in fact, I know that a harvest is going to come that's going to be plentiful for you. Your days of scarcity are over. When we tap into the system of sowing into the kingdom of God, God's obligated. He obligates himself to bless us in supernatural ways. Those of you who are maybe tithing on this day, of course, I want you to return the Lord's tithe. Simply a tenth of everything God puts into your hand. All of the giving means are right here at the bottom of your screen. Find the one that's the most convenient for you, and please take advantage of it. Thank you in advance for your generosity. May heaven smile upon you and bless you real good.
Family, didn't we enjoy the presence of God on today? I know service was just amazing. I know you felt the presence of the Lord right there, wherever you're watching us from. Right now, it's giving time, and we want to make sure that we sow into the man of God's life. He's delivered a powerful word to uplift us and teach us and to encourage us, to strengthen our faith. And now is your opportunity to participate in sowing a seed into the man of God's life. So easy to do. You can go to his personal cash app at $ Henry W. Bolden 3. Yeah, that's right, $ Henry W. Bolden 3. Or you can go to his personal website at henrybolden.com. Go ahead, sow a good seed into the man of God's life. God bless you.
Well, it really is a true saying, time really flies when you're having fun. Listen, I can't even express to you how much of a joy and a pleasure it is for me to have this opportunity to minister to you in the midday session like this. Listen, I thank you again for tuning in each and every week, taking your lunch break or taking a break from whatever it is that you're doing to be here with us in our midweek Bible study. For that, I am forever thankful. Don't forget to follow on all of our social media platforms. Don't forget to respond and comment and let us know this has been a blessing to you. And listen, I want to pronounce God's blessing on your life and your family. May the rest of this week be an amazing week for you. Always remember in parting that things can change for you at any moment. I'll see you next week.